Hello, hello. Here we go, moving right along with chapter 5. We have 5.6 today, factoring trinomials. So this is going to be broken up into 3 videos. This one will be sort of like an introduction with 3 examples, but that are very, very basic, just to get the idea down. And then the second one, the problems are a little more challenging. And then, of course, the third one, the videos are also more challenging than the second video. Okay. All right. So 5.6, take notes and make sure you text me if you have any questions as you watch this video. Factoring trinomials. All right. So before we get into factoring, let's just kind of recall multiplying a binomial with a binomial. Okay, so we have 2x minus 3 times x plus 1. And if you recall here, we're going to use the distributive property, and we're going to do 2x times x, 2x times 1. Okay, so 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. And then we're going to also do the distributive property with the -3. This is a -3. So -3 times x and -3 times 1. So we get -3x and -3. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and combine the like terms that are here in the middle, the positive 2x and the -3x. Okay. So bring down the 2x squared. Positive 2 and -3x is -1x. And bring down the -3. Okay, so what we're going to be doing here in this section in factoring trinomials is this is a trinomial, so we're going to be starting off with the trinomial, and what we're going to be doing is trying to figure out the 2 binomials that we multiplied to get this trinomial. Okay, so before we start with the factoring, let's just sort of inspect this and let's take a look at where these 3 terms in the trinomial, where do they come from in relation to these binomials? Okay, so here we have a 2x squared. Okay, and that came from here, which came from multiplying the 2x times the x. So when you're factoring, right? So when you start factoring like this, you're trying to figure out what times what to make that first term. Okay, so 2x times x makes that first term. Okay, 2x times x. So that's what you would try to figure out here. What times what to make that first term. Okay, and then here, this -3, which comes from here, which actually comes from here, -3 times 1. Okay, so when you're trying to figure out the terms, we know that this one times this one will give us the first term in our trinomial. And then we see here that the second term here times the second term here gives us this one over here on the end. Okay, -3 times 1. So 2x times x is x squared. -3 times 1 is -3. Okay, so then we have this middle term, -x, and this is the one that always gets left out. Okay, so, and oftentimes when students leave out the checks for this middle term, they end up getting the wrong factoring. Okay, so always make sure that you check to see if you get the middle term. All right, so let's take a look here and see where this -x comes from. So this -x comes from combining these 2 terms, positive 2x and -3x. Okay, so let's take a look and see where these terms come from. So these terms actually come from 2x times positive 1. Okay, so this outside multiplication. And the -3x comes from this inside multiplication, -3x. Okay? All right, so keeping that in mind, 2x times x gives you this, negative 3 times 1 gives you this, and then the outside inside product, and then you add them, will give you the middle. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at 3 examples of factoring trinomials. All right, so let's go ahead and factor completely. Factor completely means to keep factoring your answer until it can no longer be factored. Okay, so factor completely x squared plus 10x plus 24. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and figure out what the two binomials are that we multiplied to get this trinomial. Okay, so just like up here, this term times this term gives you the first term. 2x times x gives you the first term. So here, as we try to figure out these first terms, we know that this term times this term gives us x squared. Okay, there's only one way to do that, so that's x times x. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. Okay, now I want to make a positive 24. Because I want to make a positive 24, that tells me that the signs over here and here have to be the same. Unlike here, where they're different, okay, we want them to be the same because if they are different, negative times positive will give you a negative. But we want a positive 24, okay? So that tells me that my signs are going to be the same. But we have two choices. Are they going to be both positive or are they going to be both negative? The way you can tell is by looking over here, and this tells you they're going to both be positive. Okay? And now I need to make 24. So here are my choices. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Okay. Now, some of you guys may know the correct answer already, but I'm not going to pick the right answer right away because I want you to see how you can work through this problem if you don't get the right answer. Okay, so these are your choices, and let's suppose you can't tell right off the bat which one is the right one. Then you just go through them and just pick one that you think is the right one. So let's say you think 3 and 8 are the right numbers. So you put a 3 there and you put an 8 there. Okay, so, and this is what I mean by you have to check the middle term, because a lot of times students think they have the right answer because x times x is x squared, positive 3 times positive 8 is positive 24, and they think they have the right answer. Okay, so it turns out all of these would give you x squared and positive 24. Okay, so the way you know which one is the correct one is by checking the middle term. So you always have to check that middle term. And we already said here, to check the middle term, you do this outside product and this inside product, and you combine them. Okay, so let's take a look. So this outside product, okay, so that is positive 8x. And this inside product, that's positive 3x. And that gives us positive 11x. That is not our middle term. So these are not the right combination of numbers. Okay? All right. Normally, you can try switching their position. You can put the 3 here and the 8 here. But we're going to get the same thing, okay? Because both of these first terms are exactly the same. Whenever these two are the same, then you don't have to try switching it because it's going to be the same thing, okay? But let's say, like here, they're different. Then you can change their position, put the 8 here and the 3 here, and see if you get the right answer, okay? All right, so this is not the correct answer. So let's go ahead and cross this out. Cross out the 3 and 8, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and try a different set of numbers. Doesn't matter which one. Which one do you think it is? Okay, I can hear you. I can hear you saying 4 and 6. Okay, so let's try the 4 and 6. So x times x to give us x squared. This tells me the signs will be the same. So will it be positive, positive, or negative, negative? Check over here. It tells us positive, positive. And you over there in the back saying 4 and 6. All right, so again, if we get the x squared, we get the positive 24, just like 3 and 8 did. But the question is, do we get positive 10x for the middle? So let's go ahead and check outside product, positive 6x, inside product, positive 4x, and that gives us positive 10x. Okay? All right, so then the correct answer is x plus 4, x plus 6. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention, always check to see if you can factor any common factors first. That way it makes the numbers smaller and makes it a lot easier to work with. Okay, so in the last section, we looked at greatest common factor and factoring by grouping. Okay, so always check to see if you can factor anything out from the very beginning. Okay. All right, so I will do 2 more examples like this. If you feel like, oh, these are the easy ones, then you can go ahead and move on to video number 2. But if you need to kind of see this again, then stick around for the next 2 examples. Okay, so example number 2, factor completely. Suppose that we have x squared minus 7x plus 12. Okay. So again, we're trying to figure out the 2 binomials that we multiply to get this trinomial. Okay, so we're trying to figure out what times what is x squared. So whenever it's just an x squared right there, it makes it a lot easier. When we start getting into something like this, where you have a 2x squared or some other constant here, then it gets a little more complex. Okay, 2 is still not too bad because there's still only one way to make 2, right? 2 times 1. But if you have something like 12, then there are a lot of options. The more options there are, then that's what makes it a little more complicated. Okay, so here x times x is x squared. And I also want a positive 12. So the signs cannot be different or else it'll give us a negative 12. So the signs have to be the same. And then looking over here, it tells us they'll both be negative. Okay, so the signs have to be the same in order to make positive 12. All right, so these are our choices. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, and that's it. Okay, so if you think you're lucky and you know which one it is, which one should we try first? Okay, I heard some of you guys say 3 and 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and check the middle term to see if this is the correct choice out of these 3. Okay. All right, so we need to take the outside product, that's negative 4x, and take this inside product, that's negative 3x, and now combine these, and that gives us negative 7x, and that is exactly what we want for our middle term. Okay, so this is correct. Okay, so the answer here to factoring is x minus 3, x minus 4. Okay. Now, if you don't get that one first, let's say you thought, oh, okay, x times x to make x squared. We know the signs have to be negative and negative. And let's say you pick 2 and 6. You're like, okay, I think it's 2 and 6. Well, you still have to check this. So just check outside product, negative 6x, inside product, negative 2x. That gives us negative 8x. And that's not what we want for our middle term. Our middle term over here is negative 7x, okay? And only one of these is going to give you the middle term, okay? All right, and we'll do one more example here of the easier type of factoring or easier type of trinomial, and then we'll end. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor completely. Y squared plus 2xy minus 15x squared. Okay. All right. Again, checking to see if they have anything in common. They have y's in common, but this one doesn't. They have x's in common, but this one doesn't. Okay. They do not have anything in common. So let's go ahead and start. Okay. Only one way to make y squared, y times y. Okay, so now we want negative 15. Okay, we want negative, so that tells me that our signs have to be different. They have to be different in order to make negative. Okay, so one of them will be positive, one of them will be negative. Okay. All right, and then if we have them in the wrong place, it's an easy fix. You're trying to get 2xy for the middle term. Okay, if you end up with negative 2xy, then all you have to do is switch these signs, okay? So if you're only off by the sign, if you're off by the number completely, then that's not the right combination. It's not the right position, okay? All right, so we can try 1 and 15, 3 and 5, okay? So let's check, okay? Some of you guys may know the answer, but I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I don't know the answer, and I'm going to go ahead and try 1 and 5, okay, in this order, okay? So when I multiply the outside, because now I'm checking for the middle to see if I get 2xy for the middle. Here, I get negative, oh, here, I forgot the x, because we're trying to make 15x squared. So we need 1x and 5x. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and check. So when I multiply the outside, I get negative 5xy. And when I multiply here on the inside, I get positive 1xy. And that gives me negative 4xy. Okay. Now, if I switch their positions, so if I say y here, plus here, negative here, but if I put the 5x here and the 1x here, right, this is completely different from this arrangement, right? Because the signs are different. Whenever the signs are different, or when these terms are different, then when you switch them, it will be a completely different combination. Okay, so let's check this one. Okay, so outside I get negative xy. Inside I get positive 5xy. And that gives me negative 4xy. And again, oops, that gives me positive 4xy. Okay, so that gives me positive 4xy. Okay, so again, we want positive 2xy, and that did not give it to us. Okay, so let's check again. All right, so y times y to give us y squared. One of these is positive, the other one is negative. Okay, and so here we have the 3 and the 5. So if I try that, 3 here, 5 here, I know some of you guys are going, no, don't do that. Okay, but I am. Okay, so let's go ahead and check. So outside, I get negative 5y. And inside, I get positive 3y. And that gives us negative 2y. We're very close, right? So remember how I said, 2xy. I forgot my x's again. X and x. Okay. So x, y, x, y. Okay. So remember how I said if you're off by a sign, because we want the 2xy and that's what we have, but we want positive, but we ended up with negative. So when that's the case, all you have to do is fix the signs over here. So if you're off by the sign, then just change the sign. So this here will become negative. And this one here will become positive. And then that will give you the positive 2xy. Okay? So that's how you can do those. All right. Now, let's move on to video 2 to get some trinomials where we have a constant here other than 1. I'll see you there.